Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Black Dog Cast. Now, on this episode, I'm joined by a good friend of mine from London called Nick Frendo. And Nick is the brains behind a cycling-based mental health organisation called ASCND. He has done a ton of work over the last 5-6 years in fundraising for various mental health initiatives. He's been very open and frank about his own mental health challenges and really building a lot of momentum around encouraging conversations within cycling that are related to mental health. He's got an initiative right now looking to train people within cycling as mental health first aiders. But the real reason behind this podcast, it came about quite quickly within the last week, because Nick actually went through a very serious mental health crisis. He's thankfully got some help and he's now he's in a more stable, solid place, and he wanted to talk about this. And so Nick reached out to me a couple of days ago and we've been talking about doing a podcast for a while, and he wanted to use this as a way to really talk through what he's gone through in the last week. And I'd encourage you to have a listen. It's pretty raw. He talks quite frankly and openly about a suicide attempt and about what happened leading up to that, and more importantly, what happened, as a result, and the help that he got in the UK from, emergency services and NHS. And, he's in a much better place now after getting some help, and he's able to talk about this. And, I think he's incredibly brave to come on and talk about this so openly, and literally, within days of this happening. So, yeah, let's get to the podcast and talk to Nick. Welcome back to the podcast. We're here for round two. I managed to fuck up the audio on the first episode, and you weren't really happy with how it went anyway. So we're back for another go, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of worked out quite nicely, actually.
Yeah, good. It's serendipity.
Yeah.
Okay, for anybody who's listening to the podcast that's not familiar with what you've done and your sort of mental health advocacy work within cycling, just kind of give us the sort of brief. How'd you get into this?
So I guess it all started back in 2017. I've always been a cyclist. I have been a tour guide for many, many years. It wasn't till I started looking back at some of the conversations I had with clients as I was guiding, and then I realized the impact that cycling can have for conversations and helping people to open up. As I was guiding, you might be riding with someone and you could be taking them up a climb and they start to feel a little bit vulnerable, for example. Mm-hmm. You've seen them at not their lowest, but you've seen them expose themselves at the top of a climb where they have really dug deep, not necessarily believed in themselves, got to the top, and all of a sudden they have this realization that you've seen them at their most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. That creates the ability for conversations to start.
Yeah.
So that didn't really twig with me for quite some time. And then back in 2017, I had a crisis that led to, I'm already going, my first suicide attempt. Mm-hmm. And sort of after that, obviously quite a lot happened, and we've only got a limited amount of time. I kind of started my journey of what I hoped would be recovery. Mm-hmm. And it took me quite a while to open up. It was probably about a year after my first attempt, where I tried to deal with things on my own. Mm-hmm. I did try and get some help. I didn't go down the NHS route. I I kind of wanted to try some private therapy, and a client of mine very kindly helped me once I spoke to him about it and funded some for me. It didn't really quite, at the time, I just don't know, maybe I just wasn't ready to listen or ready to talk.
Yeah.
But during that year, I moved back to London and I started riding with a lot younger people who, I'm 47. The people I was riding with were probably late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
The conversations that they were having were very different and a lot more open to what I was used to having. And at one point I was on a trip in the Dolomites and I was with a friend and we decided we wanted to do a ride for charity. We'd both been quite open together, but not open publicly about what we'd been through. So we decided we wanted to raise awareness and raise some money for charity. Didn't know what we were going to do. We bounced around a few ideas. And then I came across the idea of riding from Biarritz to Venice. So it was going to be riding across the Pyrenees, the Alps, everything in between, the Dolomites.
Yeah.
About 2,800 kilometers and 55,000 meters of climbing. And it then dawned on me that no one's really going to be, it was a great ride, but no one's really going to be that motivated to donate just because some dude's riding a bike across the mountains. So I spoke to a charity in Movember and told them what I'd been through, told them what I was planning. And they said, have you told anyone about your experiences? And I was like, no, a close friend, not even my girlfriend knew at the time.
Yeah.
They said, maybe you should. So I went, I agreed. And I went through a period of telling my girlfriend, telling my kids. I told my eldest at the time. I opened up on social media and said, I'm planning to do a ride and this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And the response was huge.
Yeah.
And I'd always projected this lifestyle on social media of, this tour guide who was riding around Europe.
Living the dream, mate. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, really like
living your best life.
Yeah, full on social media projection. And yeah, I could post a photo up, and within 10 minutes, I'd be, crying my pillow.
Yeah.
And I'd be putting this front on all day for clients, trying to show them, the best experience they've ever had, send them home with incredible memories. Yeah, I'm broken from it. And you've got to put on a certain face and be charismatic and who's going to want to go on a bike tour with someone who's miserable, or open about their depression. So fighting those two things of putting a show on and being utterly broken mentally was crippling.
Yeah.
Once I came around to talking to everyone and telling them what I was planning to do and why I was planning to do it, things started to take off. People were donating. I was getting asked to do some press by Movember. So I was in national newspapers. I then did the ride. It was huge. We put it out on YouTube every day. So we did the ride and raised, I think, about £12,000. Everything was blowing up. So my social media was going nuts. I'm getting carried away in all this. It was the perfect distraction for someone who's struggling the way I was. Yeah. Because I thought it was doing me good. It really wasn't. And I just kept doing those sorts of things. I did a sunrise to sunset in the Dolomites, and that was like 17 hours.
Why do you think it was not doing you any good? Because I guess an outside observer would look at this and think, great, like you've opened up, you've taken this massive step of like opening up about these problems that you're having. You're doing something super worthwhile about it, right? You're going out, you're raising a shit ton of money and raising awareness. Yeah. You're getting all of this like support and validation from people who are sort of, good on you, like, thanks, I'm going through the same thing, and yet it wasn't working for you.
No, I mean, these events or these endurance rides that I tried doing would break me physically.
Right.
The financial stress of trying to make them happen.
Right.
I'd spent tens of thousands of pounds to raise tens of thousands of pounds for charity.
Yeah.
And I was so driven and so focused. It was like, what's next? What stupid ride can I do next to get attention and raise awareness?
Yeah.
And I got really carried away with it. But what was also happening at the time is the way I was writing on social media was actually really honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have my ups and downs, and I was always very honest about, I'm really struggling at the moment, and this is because. And people seemed to latch onto it. And it wasn't attention seeking. It was just, I found that when I wrote something and got it off my chest and out of my head,
mm-hmm.
there was just a little bit of me was like, that's a relief.
Yeah.
And I can't hide, because I was very good at hiding and putting on a front. And me putting stuff out there meant that I couldn't do it. And if I put a post up about struggling, and I mean, I had an example this morning where I was outside a cafe and there are a group of cyclists, and the London community is not huge. I mean, it is huge, but everyone knows each other.
Yeah.
And I was very conscious there were a group of people looking at me going, that's that dude. And I felt very, very self-conscious. And we'll dig into that in a bit, because obviously recent events have things have happened. But I just found that when I was on social media and posting about how I was feeling,
mm-hmm.
I'd receive a lot of messages.
Mm-hmm.
And even that, receiving some of those messages, if I posted something and got 20 people come back at me with all their problems and what they're going through, that's quite triggering as well.
Yeah.
And even sometimes I was just like, why am I doing this? I'm not making any headway and I'm not helping anyone. Long story short, I guess, is I started a website, started journaling, writing about everything I was looking to do, the various events I was document my ups and downs.
Yeah.
I would write about as well. And then more and more people started going, would you mind if I really like what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
I've got something to say. Would you mind if I put it on your website? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Please do.
Mm-hmm.
And it snowballed from there. So my website, what I do is it's called ASCND.
Mm-hmm.
And it really started life as my blog, my journal. It's now turned into a bit more than that. It's now more of a platform for other people to share their experiences. And when I started it, it was very much the life and times of a miserable middle-aged man. Now we're
not middle-aged, are we? That's people. Middle-aged people are older than us, aren't they?
Well, I'm almost 50.
I'm not far off. I'm 45.
Right. Yeah. It's not that far
we're not middle-aged. Middle-aged people are way older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hairline says it all.
Yeah. No, this is a style choice, Nick. We've gone for the Jason Statham look. You know?
Yeah, my acting skills are as good. And I've had so many people now write stuff for the journal, and the backgrounds of those people and the problems that they're talking about are so different. So it's not just sad middle-aged men. We've got people who are struggling with body dysmorphia or anxiety, or men, women, from all walks of life and from all over the world as well. And it's really snowballed, and to the point where we did some custom jerseys with Rafa last year. We sold 400 last year. Yeah, done another one this year. All the money for those, all the money we raised for those contributes to a charity that I support.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just launched it and did our first one last week. Mm-hmm. We're funding mental health first aid training courses in the UK. The idea behind that is to the best way to describe it, I think, is the way I looked at it is there's no better place for talking than on the bike.
Absolutely.
It really does enable really unusual conversations. It helps people talk. And I'm very aware of some of the conversations that I've had over the years with people where they've opened up to me. And as I started, when I came back to London, and the younger people that I was riding with, because they were more open, I found myself letting stuff slip out.
Yeah.
So I've kind of got this vision of, you go on a group ride or you go on an organised ride, ideally there's going to be some first aiders on that ride. If you've got a cycling club or group, you might. You're
talking about traditional first aid,
physical first aid.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
If you go on a cycling trip or you go on all these, everyone knows about physical first aid.
Yeah.
And ideally, we'd have more people who are trained to help. Now, I don't see why that shouldn't be the same for mental health first aid.
Yeah.
If you can signal to someone that there is someone on your ride who has the training and the tools and is equipped to be able to help you, these people aren't therapists.
Yeah.
But they all know the resources that can help. They will know the right things to say to you. They'll know how to support you, and they'll know how to avoid triggering you.
Yeah.
And I think if we could just build this network of people who are trained to be able to help, we've got the best environment for conversation. I've had experiences in the past where people have really, really wanted to help me.
Yeah.
And I'm so appreciative, but when I'm struggling, I'm very hard to talk to. And I would say most people on the street probably aren't equipped to deal with someone like me. Whereas someone who's been through the training, they'll know the right questions. They'll also know, more importantly, the wrong questions.
Yeah. Or they know what not to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, I actually, your initiative to do this inspired me to look locally here in Austin to get a mental health first aid training. I did it a couple of weeks ago, and it's incredibly useful. It's super simple. You're not there to actually solve somebody's problems. No. It's really just about listening in the right way and supporting them and directing them to resources. And I think that you're absolutely right. The bike is a perfect place to do this. I think there's something in the nature of cycling. When we go out riding with somebody, we're riding along side by side, and we're having this conversation. It's super easy to talk to somebody.
Let me just, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here, aren't I?
What's that?
Did you see the bidons that we designed?
I didn't. No, we can put a picture up.
Yeah, do. I mean, because that's exactly what it says.
Yeah. It's and the thing is you're not facing somebody, right? It's not like you're sitting down having a coffee with somebody, looking them straight in the face. And that can be quite a challenging environment to have a conversation. It's like when we're on the bike, we've got this nice environment where we're not face to face with somebody. And I think that makes it a lot easier to have those sorts of conversations, or to have whatever sort of conversation you want, right?
But also, you're probably going to be with that person for a number of hours.
Yeah.
And you can only talk about 12-speed group sets for so long and tire pressures. So I think
I don't know. I've got some friends. I'm going to give a shout out here to my friend Eugene, who's here in Austin. He can talk out about aero coefficients and CDAs and what he can do that for the whole ride. Anyway.
But it does. And also I think there's something about wearing sunglasses.
Right.
Where you're not physically revealing yourself. You can emotionally reveal yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get back to this. I did my first ride in a group on Tuesday. And there was a good 15, 20 riders, and we were doing Regent's laps. I was crying most of the way around. And a couple of people ask. I don't. It wasn't obvious, but I was really fighting the tear. I didn't want anyone to see my eyes.
Yeah.
There's something about wearing the sunglasses that can, put up your defenses, but also, I think it can relax you as well, because you're not looking someone in the eye.
Yeah.
So the whole, side by side, sunglasses, a relaxed atmosphere, unless you're on a smash fest.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the shared passion experiences, it's just, I can't imagine there's many other activities or sports.
No, I don't think so either, because there's, just thinking about it, there's not actually many other sports where you can, do the active thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
And easily talk to somebody, right? Yeah. Running's not very easy. Team sports, you're kind of, you might get that at the end if you go to the pub after a football match or something.
It's generally post that. I think any bonding from sport, from the activity itself, I reckon probably happens after.
Yeah.
Whereas cycling, it you can do it during. I think it's spectacular for enabling a conversation. And
just before we go any further, just remind us the charity that this is all raising money for.
So it's the New Normal charity.
Yeah.
It's a peer-to-peer support group. So they host, I could get shot now, something like 20 or 30 peer-to-peer support groups.
Mm-hmm.
It really picked up over the various lockdowns when it started to be virtual. I joined one called Boys Talk, which is a men's group. It was virtual at the time, and I just found I've struggled with a lot of things, but what I found from the group was that I was able to latch on to what a few people said and really relate to them, and I found that helped me an awful lot. So I went through I guess it's been 5 years, 2.5 to 3 year period where I was talking quite a lot about my experiences. I felt like I'd moved on, and then all of a sudden I had a couple of small wobbles, and I was like, I need a bit of help.
Yeah.
And I found the charity through a friend who actually founded it, looked into it and thought, why not give it a try?
Yeah.
And just found that peer-to-peer support and listening to people who are going through similar things meant that, I could rather than being talked at, I could listen and just pick out what I thought might be useful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they do an incredible job, and they run various different groups. It's not just men's groups. It's not just mental health either. It's various peer-to-peer support groups.
Yeah. And I remember, am I right, when we spoke before about this, you thought that peer-to-peer support group environment had been far more valuable to you than any therapy that you'd had and other sorts of treatment.
I reckon I definitely, I don't know if it's right to say this, but I don't ever felt like I was ready for therapy.
Right.
Whether that means I just couldn't find the right person. And I tried 5 or 6 just randomly, which is the problem, because I didn't really have a medical diagnosis. I hadn't really spoken to anyone, hadn't done any research to what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I tried to just fob it off and get on with life. Now I feel very different. I mean, this very moment, I feel incredibly different.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a degree of regret that I hadn't taken the path that I've taken now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of people would really benefit from just listening to others. And you can just sit there in silence and listen, but very rarely does that happen. A lot of people just seem to dig in.
Yeah. It's, I think your experience with therapy is incredibly common. I had a similar experience until I found a therapist that really worked. But same thing, it took me 4 or 5 goes to find somebody. It's a total like random crapshoot, right? The process of finding a therapist. I mean, to me, finding a therapist is a bit like dating, right? There's an awful lot of therapists out there, and there's an awful lot of people that need a therapist, and you've got to find the one that fits and is right.
Yeah.
But that's incredibly hard. And so the only way to go about it is to go and try a bunch of different ones. And then I think a lot of people are put off. They have a poor experience. They think they're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
And they just forget it. And the other thing that I think super valuable about peer support groups is that not everybody needs therapy, right? They can get an awful lot of value, an awful lot of help out of something like a peer support group. Yeah. And it's far more accessible and scalable, right? So,
I mean, for example, I'm now going through the NHS program, which is going to be quite painful because it's so long. Mm-hmm. In an ideal world, I would, I've been struggling financially recently, and for me to go out and find a number of therapists until that super cost me a ridiculous amount of money, and I get nowhere.
Yeah,
and that's a real concern. I would throw all the money I had at it if I could.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I'm stuck in this. Just do I sit it out and wait for the NHS to do their thing?
Mm-hmm.
Do I try a few peer-to-peer support groups in the meantime, just to try and supplement what I'm struggling with?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I break myself to fund finding that therapist?
It's a tough situation, and I think it's a very common situation, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and that applies, both sides of the Atlantic, right? I've seen it in the UK and in the US. Obviously, the US is far more dominated by private healthcare, but ultimately in the UK, essentially it's the same thing, because finding therapy help on the NHS is really hard, isn't it?
Yeah, and they've offered me 3 sessions, and actually be 4. And the aim of these 3 sessions is to find the kind of therapy that I need.
Okay, that's. My initial reaction was like, what the fuck are they going to be able to do in 3 sessions? Like,
yeah, so it's not, they're not. I mean, they're fully accepting. I'm probably not going to take anything out of these sessions.
Yeah.
But what it might equip me with is this is the kind of therapist you should be looking for.
Yeah.
Instead of just Googling, whatever random. So
yeah. Can I ask just one question for you? Have you ever had an official diagnosis, so to speak? You haven't. Okay.
No, because I avoided seeing anyone. I didn't. Right. I didn't want to accept that I might need medication, and I didn't want to accept that therapy was going to be out. There was a lot of denial on my part.
Yeah.
And for quite some time, I got away with it.
Yeah.
And over the last week, that's how I'm looking at it, is I had a 3-year period where I got away with it. And I also started to feel like, because of all the work I'd done, I was picking up lots of tips and help. And I could, I knew if I struggled. I've had a couple of times where I've struggled and it's been quite bad. And I've known to pick up the phone to a crisis line.
Yeah.
And that's generally worked. It's happened maybe twice over that 5-year period. And I've had some moments where I've needed to talk to friends, and I've found the right people to talk to. And that was me thinking I beat it.
Yeah.
And I found a way out of it, and I had all the tools, and I was well equipped. I even did the first aid course.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I think it saved my life.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I think had I not, and it was weird. It was weird. The training kicked in, and I used it on myself.
Wow.
I got in such a crisis last week that somewhere my brain kicked in and said, "Call the police." And I'm not sure I would have done that without the training.
Yeah.
I would have made it out the front door. I had a plan in place, and I would have completed it.
Wow.
I think if I hadn't gone through that course.
Yeah.
That brings us up to now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, that just speaks volumes about how valuable the mental health first aid training is, right?
It's huge. And, you know, if a friend gets in touch with you and you've been on the course, at least you know some of the steps to take for that person. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get them out of a crisis, but you might be able to intervene.
Yeah.
You may prevent them from getting into a crisis because you know what you say to them.
Yeah.
But for me, it's as vital as physical first aid. And up until probably 3 or 4 months ago, I didn't realize it was really a thing.
Mm-hmm. So what happened next? You called the police.
So I hit another crisis last weekend. I'm probably going to say worst one ever. Mm-hmm. I had maybe a 6-hour period of pacing around in distress. I made a decision. I decided exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go. And then I think my training kind of kicked in, and I called Samaritans crisis line. And for the first time, it didn't work. I was in no state for them to be able to help me. I hung up on them after 10 minutes, and paced. I was crying. I was sweating. I was utterly in distress. And I grabbed the front door, went to walk out, and then something just kicked in and was call the police. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to go through with it. I wouldn't have called the police if that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
The operator on the line kind of talked me down. I probably hung up on him twice, and they kept calling back, and I ignored it for quite a long time, then would pick it up again. Somehow he got all my details out of me. I had no idea how. And as he was talking to me, police came to the door with mental health nurses. They were with me for probably, it was a blur, but maybe 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And they rightly or wrongly, they decided that because I'd taken the steps to call Samaritans, to call the police, that I didn't need to go to hospital. Mm-hmm. And they said I'd probably be sat in accident emergency for 4 or 5 hours, and I would probably deteriorate. So they thought I was safer at home.
Yeah.
On my own. They told me that a specialist mental health team would arrive in the morning. And at about 5 a.m. they left. And I had another moment where I was like, they've left me. What's that? I'm not better. I'm not calmer. They've just gone. So I walked out of the house and went to get an Uber, and there was, I think it was like a 20-minute wait. And in my head, I'm like, it's 5 a.m. Where are they all? So I sat in the gutter waiting for an Uber, and then again, something kicked in, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I thought about my family. I thought about my friend. I thought about the just carnage that I would cause. And I stopped myself and I went back upstairs. By now it's 7:00, and I messaged a friend to tell her this is what had happened, and she was like, "Don't move, I'm coming."
Yeah.
She came round later that day. The healthcare team came round. I have no idea really what they said, or what, they said, we'll put a plan in place, we'll do this, we'll do that. And it was all just, my head was everywhere. But it kind of sounded positive. And I had an okay night's sleep. I got through the day. A friend supported me throughout. She was with me the next day as well. And every day they arranged, either once or twice a day, the healthcare team would come in and check in on me, just to check my progress, make sure I was safe. First couple of days were okay. I was still having thoughts. I still didn't want to go and ride my bike. I didn't feel safe.
Can I just ask a question? So when you're in this period between, you've called the police and the police were there, and then they essentially left you on your own.
Yep.
And then you're having these healthcare workers come in periodically.
Yeah.
At no point during that time has anybody, they haven't actually given you anything to help you.
No.
Right.
No, I mean,
Okay.
some good conversations.
Okay.
And
But no formal treatment. You haven't seen like an expert. Nobody's given you any medication.
No.
They talked you down off the ledge and kind of left you.
Yeah.
Right.
And they said they would come every day. So I got through Monday and Tuesday. Started to feel calmer Tuesday evening. I'd arranged for a friend to come over on, I think it was the Tuesday night, and I was exhausted, and I cancelled on him. I said, I'm not. I fucking lied and said I'm safe. I wasn't. But I just thought I need to get through tonight, and I need to sleep. Got to the Wednesday. I knew I was going to be on my own for most of the day. And I did an Instagram post telling everyone what I'd done. And you get the outpouring of, "We got you, Nick. We're here for you. We'll come and see you. We'll give you a call." Nothing. Over the next few days, I didn't have a single visitor. My phone didn't ring once. So one of my friends was checking in. She was really insistent. She was very much, "You need to check in at 9, and you need to check in, and I need to hear from you, and you need to be honest with me." And I was. She's amazing, and part of me accepts that people are busy and they've got their own lives and shit to deal with. The other part of me was like, "You said you would call me. You said you would be here. You said, don't just say it to make yourself feel better." Because what then happened was I had 2 days on my own. Kind of fortunately, the Giro was on. So I was able to distract myself with that all day. The nurses would come in. So I had a couple, but I had no real personal contact. I had no one really to say, "I feel a bit shit at the moment," or "I've had a good day." I had nothing personal with anyone for the next 2 days. And then Friday, I had nurses booked in the morning, and the first psychological assessment in the afternoon, and potentially a friend coming over in the evening. And the nurses didn't show in the morning. because I hadn't listened, because I wasn't in any fit state to listen, that because I was having the assessment, there was no need for them to come in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there stewing for a good 7-8 hours. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I got on the train to go to the hospital for the assessment. That was really traumatic. So it was an hour or two of the last 5 years being dragged up.
Yeah.
And I understand that it's completely necessary. But I came away from it even more traumatized than I went into it.
Mm-hmm.
I then thought I was going to have contact with people in the evening. That didn't happen. And I sat there Friday night just feeling totally alone.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had about 200 messages in my inbox on Instagram. Nothing genuine. That sounds harsh, but no one said, what time can I come round?
Yeah.
Give me your address.
Yeah.
What's your number? I'll give you a call. So I felt completely isolated. Some people were giving me space because they thought that was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want space. I wanted a hug.
Yeah.
And Friday night, I ended up going to bed, and I couldn't sleep. My eyes would not shut. And I wasn't agitated. I wasn't distressed. I wasn't, I felt nothing. And I decided at about 4:00, maybe, somewhere around that sort of time, might be 5. I got up, made some coffee. I'd written an article for the website, and it was very raw. I'd written it on the Wednesday, and it was pretty savage.
Mm-hmm.
And Emma, who's the other half of ASCND, very sensibly said, you shouldn't be putting this out there. It's not good for you. So on Wednesday, I listened to her, but on Friday, I just felt I felt like I had nothing. I didn't care. So I made my coffee, sat down, published the article, turned off. So I disabled all access to the Instagram and website, so it couldn't be taken down. I wrote 3 letters, which I didn't do on the Sunday. And I was so calm, and so it was so collected. It was weird. Like I'd made a decision that I was going to end my life, and I was okay with it. I was at peace is the wrong word, but I was so calm. So I wrote the 3 letters. I then wrote, I don't know why I did this, but I wrote a note and put it in my wallet that had all my contact details, next of kin, address. I published the article on Instagram and the website, got up, got on a train, went to Tower Bridge. So it was about 8 a.m, I think, by the time I got there. And I had a coffee, and the weekend before, I'd been sat with a friend in a spot, and we were having coffee together, and I sat in that exact same spot. And I looked at the bridge. I looked at the water, finished my coffee, walked up onto the bridge, and I stood there for probably about half an hour. And I had moments where I started to feel agitated, and I started to feel like I was upset. But I'm just going to do it. I've had enough, and no one really seems to care. And I climbed up on the bridge, I kept looking around and I kept waiting. London landmarks are never that quiet, and I didn't see a gap. And I was like, "Fuck it, I'm getting up there." So I climbed up, and almost the second I got up there, I got jumped and pulled off, and restrained, and the police were called.
Wow.
And I guess that was that. So the police took me to the station. They were amazing. So there were 4 policemen that dealt with me. And they were all incredible. The goal was to get me into a secure unit. So they sectioned me for my own safety. And it took, I think it must have taken like a good 5-6 hours for them to find a space for me. They looked after me that whole time. And one of them turned around to me at one point. We were in one of the hospitals because they took me to 2, and we sat in this room together, and I was still in pieces. And he told me he lost his dad to suicide. And you're just like, fucking hell, is there anywhere you can go without being touched by it? And I've lost friends in the past, and I guess I've got this bubble around me now that is full of people who've been touched by suicide, or they know someone or of someone, and it just seems to be everywhere you go.
Yeah.
But eventually they got me into a secure unit. I was assessed a number of times, kept in overnight. And then again, because of some of the things I did and said during the assessments, they said it was okay to release me into care. So I was eventually sent home into care with my family, and got back home. And that was Sunday. It's now, what day is it? Thursday.
It's Thursday. Yeah.
So that kind of escalated everything quite a bit. And the change has gone from, I still get the visits from the nurses daily. They wanted to get me on meds as quickly as possible. There were 2 options. So they've issued me with metrazepam. And I started taking that on, I think it was Tuesday night. Because Monday and Tuesday I was still very agitated, and I was still getting triggered, but kind of okay with it. Last week I had a few thoughts creep in that I was really worried about, and I didn't have any of those Monday, Tuesday. I took the meds Tuesday night, and they just knocked me out. And I had the best night's sleep I've had. I don't sleep badly, but this was, I woke up and I've been dead to the world. I rode on Tuesday with a bunch of friends. Like I said, I couldn't stop crying the whole way around. I've been quite public about what I've been through. I'm sure some people would call it oversharing, but I really don't care. If me oversharing helps another person,
or helps you, frankly, right?
Then I really don't care. And even though I was still crying, and as soon as someone would talk to me, and they'd want to talk to me and they'd want to be helpful, I just went to pieces, but kind of not in a bad way. I wasn't feeling negative. And we're now on Thursday, and I feel like I've had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I feel like I've had 3 good days. I've kept myself busy. The lesson I took from last week is don't get in your head, and don't don't rely on anyone, be proactive, just go out and see people, go out and ride my bike, walk to the shops, anything. Just don't get in your own head. But I've noticed a change almost immediately with the meds.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of conversations I've had that could have triggered stuff. And the way that I've reacted to it is very, very different immediately. Yeah. And I don't know if it's just because I'm feeling calmer or I'm in a better place than I was last week, or, the meds do what they're supposed to do. But I've noticed it a couple of times where I've thought, shit, that didn't trigger me. So, I guess I'm happy taking the meds now.
And this is, I know we spoke about this once before. This is the first time you've taken any meds. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always tried to avoid everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Whether it be meds, therapy, people talking, everything.
Yeah. Take the drugs. Take the drugs. No, we shouldn't. It's easy to make light of it and joke about it. I mean, I'm really open about my own experience with taking drugs because they have really, really worked for me. Yeah. And I've been on the same mood stabilizer drug for probably 3 years.
Yeah.
And also started taking an antidepressant with them as well. And it's not something to make light of at all. It's serious shit, like going down the route of taking psychiatric medication.
Yeah.
But if you need it, it works.
I mean, I've got no experience with it in the past, and so far I've taken 2 pills.
Yeah.
So I haven't, I'm at day 0. And I'm already, being the cynic I am, I'm already like, no, it's just placebo. You've had a couple of good days, you've been riding your bike, the sun's out, your tan lines are coming on nicely.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
There's probably an element of both, but, the research suggests it, and many people's experience will back up the fact that they do work.
Yeah.
I think I was explaining before we started recording, I did a podcast episode with my psychiatric nurse. So she's the lady that prescribes my meds, basically.
Yeah.
I'll put that out either probably just after this one, because I think it's important to get this one out as soon as possible. We talked in depth about the whole process of prescribing meds and what it looks like. And unfortunately, there's an awful lot of trial and error that most people go through.
Yeah.
We get into it on this podcast with my therapist, where she uses this DNA test, which, you can shortcut a lot of the trial and error to get to one that really works. I mean, I think that's the biggest. Well, there's a couple of big issues. One is side effects. Right? I don't know if you've noticed any side effects.
I felt a slight grogginess and cloudiness.
Right.
So far, but also a calmness. So if I'm stuck with those two, if I feel a little bit groggy most of the time, but also calm, then I'm cool with that. If I'm not triggering and reacting the way that I was, but feel a little bit dozy, then again, I'll take it.
Yeah. Do they give you any indication as to how long you might need to take them? Is it something that you take for a short period in a acute crisis and then you'll come off of it? Or?
No idea.
Okay.
So my next assessment is 2 weeks away.
Okay. And through this process, have you had a diagnosis yet, or
still no?
Or not? Still no. Okay.
No, it's a few things. So I think the way it worked, or the first assessment we did was try and build a picture of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, I think, will probably be a case of looking at, I'm guessing we're going to have to look at that second attempt as well.
Mm-hmm.
what caused that. But I would have thought gradually what they want to try and undo is just unpack everything and then say, okay, this is what we think is wrong.
Yeah.
But at no point has anyone said, yes, it's depression, or it's there was a question of bipolar, but they ruled that out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I think
I'm not sure I need, to be honest. I don't really need a label.
Right. That's just what I was going to say. I mean, when you actually think about an acute situation like you've just gone through, the most important thing is to get somebody help and to get them back into a stable situation. Right. It doesn't matter what the label is, as long as you can get that person help, and if they need meds, you get them on some meds, and it stabilizes the situation and calms everything down, and you're no longer in danger. And the actual label of it is a lot less important.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing for me over the last 10 days has been to get myself out of danger.
Yeah.
And I don't really care how it happens. And like, even the police were like, do you want us to section you? And I was like, yes, right now, just I'm not safe.
Yeah.
And I'd had a couple of moments in the first week where I'd started thinking, what if I go for a bike ride? And my first suicide attempt was actually riding down a mountain as fast as I could on the wrong side of the road.
Wow.
Hitting the most technical, one of the most technical descents I know, as fast as I could, hoping a car would come. And I got lucky.
Yeah.
And that kind of played on my mind again last week. Every now and then I was like, maybe I should go for a ride because this is fucking pointless. Maybe I can have an accident. And I think since Monday, where I've been out, I've made sure I've gone out with other people. But I actually feel safe on my own now. So a couple of times I've ridden up to central London, done a few Regent's laps, ridden back on my own.
Yeah.
Ridden around on my own. I rode past Tower Bridge yesterday.
Wow.
And part of me was like, I need to go over it.
Yeah.
And the other part of me was like, don't be a fucking
and
idiot.
you did you go over it?
No.
Okay.
No, I just kept going straight, went to the next bridge and came back on myself. I
mean, that's a brave thing to do, to go back to, where it all happened.
It's happened before where, so I'm shit at suicide. And
thankfully.
Yeah. That was my fourth attempt.
Yeah.
And I would say it's the first one I got lucky. The second and third, it was the thought of the damage I would do that stopped me, and I stopped myself. The last one, I didn't stop. I was going through with it, and if it wasn't for passers-by, I would have completed. But yeah, fortunately, my planning is shit, and I got away with it. But a couple of times, so I've ridden that descent since. The first time I rode it, I was with clients.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're guiding, you kind of let people get close enough to your back wheel so they can follow the line, but not too close so they take you out. I'd probably put about 20 or 30 meters between me and that person because I was bawling my eyes out on the way down.
Yeah.
And I've ridden it a couple of times since, and I felt really proud of myself that I did it. So at some point, I will want to go back to Tower Bridge, and I want to stand there as well.
Yeah.
Just so that I know I can, and know that it's not, it's just a bridge. Knowing that I'm in a better place and I'm safe to do it.
Yeah.
I might not be able to do it for months or even a year or so. It's infuriating because it's on my commute. So I've got to go out my way to avoid it.
Right.
But one day I'll feel comfortable going and standing in that spot again. And that's really, really important.
Yeah. Well, there's no rush.
No, it ain't going anywhere.
Right. The important thing is that, those passerbys intervened.
Yep.
And you got help, and you're on some meds, and
yeah,
you can rebuild back from
I've had
here.
3 good days. Every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and today, I've been able to look back in, just before I go to bed and think that bit was good, that bit was good, that bit was good, and know that at no point during that day, in those 3 days, has any thought of any negative thoughts have come into my head.
Yeah. I guess this reminds me. So you have this sort of tagline for ASCND called RESPAIR.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means and maybe how it's relevant to this situation?
So, a couple of us got it tattooed on our legs.
Yeah.
So it's an old English word. It's not in use anymore, but it was in the Oxford English Dictionary in the 17th century, and it meant the period of hope after a moment of despair.
Mm-hmm.
So the opposite of despair, and looking forward to having hope.
Yeah.
So it's a really important word to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, hopefully that's resonating with you now in this period that you're going through. And
it is, but I'm going to be brutally honest. There were times in the last week where I just wanted to scratch it off my fucking leg because I had none and I couldn't see it, and I thought it was bullshit. Mm-hmm. But the last 3 days, I'm still, I wouldn't say the despair is easing, and hopefully the RESPAIR will come.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to build a few things that I can look forward to. So I'm going to go to Provence for a few days in 2 weeks' time. Just go and stay with a friend who's got a nice guest house and ride a bit, enjoy some sun. Mm-hmm. And then probably the biggest thing I think we're planning is an ASCND ride in LA.
Cool. When's that? I'll come along.
We've September the 10th, so Worldwide Suicide Prevention Day.
Okay.
So we're going to team up with Luft Los Angeles, hopefully. Oh,
I love that shop.
Yeah.
Do you know, I love it. I love it. I've never actually been there. I used to live quite nearby.
Right. So Cody and the guys over there have kind of supported us and me for a while now.
Yeah.
And we sold quite a few jerseys to people in LA last year.
Yeah.
And there's a real community there.
There is. Yeah. Between them and Rafa as well. There's the riding scene on the west side of LA is great. And
we're looking to head over for 10 days, 2 weeks.
Okay.
And really do as much as we can. So whether it's more podcasts, interviews, press, leading up to World Suicide Prevention Day.
Yeah.
I want to put myself out there. I want to put ASCND out there, and I just want to spread this message of, you guys have obviously got mental health first aid resources. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that people are aware of what it is, how you do it.
Yeah.
And we have more people out there who can help.
Yeah.
So the idea is to just really make as much noise as we can around that and help as many people as we can. Yeah.
Ironically, my mental health first aid training here was free. Which I think in the UK, do you have to pay for it? Because you were raising money.
So there are free courses. There are a lot of corporates do it. But we've decided to do our, we do them with Mental Health First Aid England. Mm-hmm. And we fund the trainer.
Yeah.
So we train about 16 people per session.
Mm-hmm.
And we launched 3 courses and all 3 of them are full up already.
Yeah, that's great.
And the goal is to do them next year. And even if they're 3 in the US, people need to know that it's a thing.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we can put some information in the show notes of just how to find these courses in the UK and in the US if people are interested in doing it, because it's super important.
Yeah.
I guess so. Just like taking a step back, right? You're heavily involved in sort of mental health advocacy. I am as well. Do you think we're getting anywhere with it? Like, do you think that let me rephrase that. I think I'm seeing more and more conversations happening, and especially, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and within a professional context, it seems like we've got over the stigma of actually talking about this, but are we actually doing anything about it?
Well, I'm not sure we are over the stigma of talking about it, because there's still a lot of people that feel that they can't and won't.
Right. Do you think the people talking about it are not the ones that are going through the problems?
Yeah.
Right.
I do. I mean, I talk about it a lot, and I thought I was all right.
Likewise, I talk about it a lot as well, but I talk about it because I've been through it, and now I know a little bit about it.
So I think if you look at the corporate environment, that there's a lot of people I speak to who work for these big companies who do the most incredible programs.
Mm-hmm.
But I still, I'm like, would you go into that office and speak to that person?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, God, no. Someone sees me going in there or arranging that appointment or anything, I'm judged straight away.
Yeah.
They're probably not, but that's the perception.
Yeah.
So my thinking is, if we can have these hubs, clubs, resources, shout about it, that, someone, maybe they're a cyclist working in a city bank,
mm-hmm.
And the bank's putting on, they've got these resources, but that person doesn't want to go in there.
Yeah.
They know that there's other places they can go to for that help. It's just really signposting everyone towards alternatives, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And like we say, the first aid course it's not therapy, but what they can do is maybe take the edge off and help you realize that having a conversation and pointing you in the right direction to help and resources.
You mean if people who are actually suffering from a mental health issue go and take the first aid course?
No, not necessarily. But if we've got more people out there who've taken the course,
right,
and we signpost that we've got these people out there, then people who are struggling hopefully would know where to look and how to find them.
Yeah.
I'm working on a few projects at the moment to try and join those two things up so that there is a visible network of locations and people who are first aiders. And if I can, I'm trying to get into cycling clubs and teams and cycling
mm-hmm.
cafes and brands. And
what would be great is if there was a way that people could display on the bike that they are a mental health first aider, right? Have you thought about this one already?
Yeah, okay. All over it. So that's ASCND version 2. So ASCND version 2 is to create these signals and signposts that if you are a mental health first aider and you're willing to share what you've learned, you'll have something that will signal that you're a first aider that's recognizable to people who are looking for it, and vice versa as well. If you're someone who's suffering and wants to talk, we want to create a signal that shows that you want to talk, but you may not have the confidence to approach someone.
Yeah.
So, someone who's mental health trained can see that signal and just come up to you and say, "Are you okay?
You're right, mate." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. This is actually one of the things. So way back when me and a couple of other friends in London just came up with this black dog idea, before we'd even done anything with it, the guy who's he was the main guy whose idea it was. You might have met him a couple of times. We did the very first podcast with him, and he wants to remain anonymous because he's a teacher. that was exactly he was like, yeah, why don't we just get these stickers on the bike and it says, you know, like I'm riding with the black dog or something, and it's just a signal that says either like, if you want to talk to me about something, like I'm open to talk about it. And I think I don't know, you could have like a bright yellow seat pack or something that a brand provides, or who knows.
It's exactly what I want the ASCND logo, whatever, on items that its signal is just this beacon for I can help or I need help.
Yeah.
And you know, when you get chain gangs going out where there's 20, 30 riders, chances are of someone actually who's struggling approaching someone in that environment is slim, I think. However, if you get to that post-ride coffee stop and you've seen that person who's carrying the torch, as it were, hopefully that would encourage you to know that person can help, and you might be able to spark up a conversation around what you're going through and be open to the fact that you need help.
I look, it's you're preaching to the converted. Like, I think it's a great idea. We've got a great platform to do this sort of thing in cycling, and it's super valuable work.
If anyone wants to help me do it, I'm open to offers. I think it's such an important thing to do. And I just need to make it happen.
So what does that's obviously a big thing you got going on towards the end of the year, and what else is happening? Is it just a case of sort of small steps, getting back to normal, getting back on your feet?
I think I've got I mean, in my head, I still feel like I'm in a crisis. I still feel like something could happen. You know, there's still the in the back of my mind, I'm still like, what if you're not out of it? But I'm very aware of the progress that I've made in 3 days has been quite startling as well. And if this is my life going forward, then hopefully the next 3 days can be the same. And then I can start to make some progress. Short term, that was an awful thing to think. I was going to say I'm stuck with the NHS. They do an incredible job. And everyone I've dealt with, actually in all the emergency services and the NHS, has been absolutely incredible. But I sort of feel like I need to supplement their work with something else for myself as well. But I don't just want to go and do that Google search for therapists, because I don't even know what I've got at the moment. I think, I mean, I guess my take on this, and I've seen this from afar with one or two people that I know that were sectioned and had help. The NHS is great at a time of acute crisis, right? And I think that applies whether it's a mental health crisis or whether you've broken your leg, right? That's where the NHS is great. The NHS is not so great when you need like long-term support,
long-term non-acute support like therapy, or you're waiting for a non-urgent operation, or whatever. So kudos to the NHS for getting you the help that you needed in an acute situation, and then I guess now you're navigating that non-urgent landscape to find the right resources and the right help.
Fingers crossed I find it.
Cool. What else? Is there anything else that you want to talk about today? I feel like a therapist.
I don't know. I kind of want to thank the people that have, supported me throughout. As one friend in particular has really put herself in the freight train, in the way of the freight train that is me and my actions. And she's incredible. And I owe her so much. So shout out to Emma.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my mum's looked after, I'm 47 years old, and my mum's been looking after me.
Mm-hmm.
So my mum's been amazing. I mean, I guess to people that have checked in, ridden with me. And again, you know, emergency services, people that got me off the bridge in the first place. I've no idea who they are.
Yeah.
Just, and even you for this opportunity, because, you know, I think that when we did this first time round, I wasn't happy. I didn't feel myself, and I didn't feel particularly genuine. And getting the opportunity to come on again, and I was quite nervous, and even a couple of people said, "Don't do it because it's too soon, it's too raw."
It is pretty soon, and I guess I was very pleased that you seem very keen to want to do this again.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I am.
That's awesome because I think, you know, regardless of whether you'd been through this recent crisis or not, like, I want to have this conversation with you because you've got an awful lot to share on the subject.
It's also just, again, so this is probably the second conversation I've had with someone in 2 weeks. So even just having a chat has been brilliant.
Yeah.
Because I've not had many people to talk to. And, you know, when I'm out riding, people give me a pat on the back and are like, "It's great to see you out."
Yeah.
Or we might go for coffee and it's just a chat, but actually having a conversation, I know I'm going to sleep well tonight, and I'm going to feel like this has got a bit of a load off my chest as well.
Yeah.
So thanks for the opportunity.
Anytime,
and
mate.
everything else you're doing as well. I mean, it's great.
I feel like I haven't done anything, Nick. I've just sat here and listened, and you've, you know,
sometimes that's all someone needs.
Poured your heart out and kind of, I think it's incredibly brave to come in here and talk about this so openly and so in such a raw manner, literally days after, you know, you were standing on Tower Bridge about to commit suicide and somebody intervened and
failed again.
You down. I mean, it's like, it's a very brave thing to do to come and talk about this. And I think, you know, thank you.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
So that's it for this episode. Again, I'd just like to thank Nick for coming on and talking so openly and honestly about his experience over the last week or so. Suicide is obviously a really serious topic. It's something that, I mean, if we're talking about mental health stigma, it's probably at the top of the list of things that there are stigma around, and a lot of people are very uncomfortable about talking about it. So I think it's super important that Nick and I had this chance to have this conversation. I would encourage you to share this episode. I think it's important that people hear a story like this. We'll put some links in the show notes for resources for anybody that is experiencing a serious mental health crisis like this. I think it also really brings home the importance of what Nick and ASCND are trying to do to get people within the cycling world trained as mental health first aiders. As I mentioned in the podcast, it's, you know, I took mental health first aid training a couple of weeks ago. It takes a few hours. It's super valuable. It puts you in a position where you can help somebody in a time of crisis and direct them to resources that could potentially save their lives. So again, check the notes in the show description. We'll put some information there on how you can go about finding a mental health first aid training course near you. And as ever, I'd encourage you to share the podcast with friends. If you like what you hear, go onto iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review. It all helps to get the podcast out to a wider audience. And that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for another one soon.